Sarah had always lived in the shadows of others. Her father, a renowned engineer, and her mother, a prominent surgeon, were always ahead in their fields. Their success stories were constantly in the news, with their names making headlines for groundbreaking innovations or groundbreaking surgeries. They were the people everyone admired. Meanwhile, Sarah felt like a silent spectator, trying to prove herself, but never quite gaining the recognition she longed for. Growing up, Sarah admired her parents, but she also resented the fact that their lives were always more important than hers. Every dinner conversation seemed to be about their latest achievement, their next big project, or the latest milestone they had reached. Sarah, on the other hand, always had to fight for a moment of attention, a word of praise. As years went by, she worked hard, pushing herself, trying to carve out a space for herself. Yet, no matter how hard she tried, her accomplishments never seemed to stand up to the monumental achievements of her parents. No matter how much she accomplished at work, how many promotions she received, it never seemed to matter. Why is it that no one ever notices what I do? She often asked herself. One evening, as Sarah sat in her room, flipping through old family photos of vacations and family gatherings, an idea struck her. Why don't I plan something for myself and for them, a trip that would be unforgettable? This thought ignited a spark within her. It was time to give her family something they would never forget. It was time to prove that she too could create something spectacular, something beyond the shadows of her parents. Sarah wasn't sure where to begin, but she was determined to make this trip the best one they had ever experienced. This is it, she thought, her heart racing with excitement. This is my chance to show them I am worthy of attention, of love, and of being noticed. Sarah began planning in earnest. She wasn't going to settle for an ordinary vacation. No, this trip had to be grand. I'm going to take them to Italy, the dream destination for most, she thought. The romantic landscapes of Tuscany, the ancient ruins of Rome, and the canals of Venice. The perfect setting for a trip that would not only bring her family closer together, but also demonstrate to them the kind of thought and effort she was capable of. Every detail mattered. She researched the best hotels, the finest restaurants, the most luxurious tours, and the most exclusive events. Every penny she had saved was poured into the trip. She imagined her parents' faces when they would see the beauty of Italy, experience the culture, and realize how much she had done for them. This was her way of thanking them for everything they had done for her, even if it had felt like they never truly saw her. The flights were booked in business class, the hotels were 5-star, and private tours were scheduled for the famous historical sites. Sarah even organized a few surprise events, a private gondola ride in Venice, a wine-tasting tour in Tuscany, and a cooking class with an Italian chef. This trip will be unforgettable, she promised herself. She couldn't wait for the moment when they would board the plane, all together, and the dream of this trip would finally come true. The day Sarah finally revealed her plans to her family, she could hardly contain her excitement. She imagined how proud they would be of her, how happy they would be with the effort she had put into making this journey perfect. But the response wasn't what she expected. Her mother, with a cold smile, said, "Sarah, this isn't a good time for us. We have too much going on, and perhaps this trip isn't the right moment." Sarah was stunned. How can she say that? She thought, her mind racing. She had spent months planning, making sure every detail was perfect, And yet her mother dismissed it with a single sentence. Her father, always the voice of reason, chimed in, "Sarah, we're always busy. We'll get another chance to travel later, but we need to stay focused on our work right now." Sarah's heart sank. The words felt like a punch to her chest. "I've worked so hard for this. Why does no one see the effort I've put in? Why does it never matter?" The frustration and pain of feeling overlooked washed over her. For years, she had been the one to sacrifice, to try harder, and yet it felt like it was never enough. "I'm invisible," she thought. "No matter how much I do, it's never good enough." Double asterisk. It didn't take long for Sarah to make a life-changing decision. She was done waiting for validation. "If they don't appreciate what I'm doing, then I'll stop trying to please them. I'll do this for me, for my own happiness." Sarah spent the next few hours in silence, reflecting on her life and the path she had been following. She realized that for too long, she had lived her life according to the expectations of others. It was time to take control and make decisions that would serve her own well-being, her own happiness. So she did it. She canceled the entire trip, the hotel reservations, the flights, the private tours. All of it was canceled. For the first time in her life, Sarah decided that she would live for herself. She no longer needed her family's approval to feel good about herself. When she hit the cancel button, Sarah felt a rush of freedom, the weight lifting from her shoulders. "I'm done being the person who always tries to make others happy. I deserve to be happy too." As soon as Sarah made the cancellations, her phone started to buzz with notifications. Her mother's name appeared on the screen, and she hesitated before answering. "Why did you cancel everything?" Her mother's voice was filled with frustration and concern. "This is ridiculous. We were looking forward to this trip. You've let us down." Her father called next, his tone stern. "Sarah, this was a big mistake. You can't just take everything away like that. Why did you do it?" But Sarah remained silent. She chose not to answer their calls. For the first time, she felt no obligation to explain herself, no guilt for doing something for herself. She was free from their judgment, free from their expectations. The following days were filled with emotional turmoil, but as time went on, Sarah started to realize that her decision had been the right one. She began to find peace in knowing that she didn't have to live for anyone else anymore. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah began to invest in herself. She started reading books about personal development, attending online courses, and engaging in activities that she had always put off. The more she focused on herself, the more she realized how much potential she had inside. She had been holding herself back for so long, waiting for approval, that she had neglected the most important person in her life, herself. Sarah took up yoga, learned a new language, and even started painting, something she had always been passionate about but never had the time for. As she embraced her new routine, she began to see changes in her mindset. She felt more confident, more alive, and more in control of her destiny. Months later, Sarah had transformed. She was no longer the person who waited for others to validate her. She had finally learned to embrace her own worth. She no longer needed the approval of her parents to feel good about herself. Sarah was living her life on her terms. She traveled alone to different places, not to escape, but to explore and discover herself. Each trip wasn't just a vacation, it was a journey of personal growth. "I am free now," she thought as she walked through the streets of Paris. feeling the weight of the world lift off her shoulders. Sarah understood that true freedom wasn't about running away from problems, but about embracing herself and her choices. She was no longer the person who lived in the shadows. She had come into her own light. Sarah now knew that the true meaning of success wasn't about wealth or recognition. It was about inner peace, self-love, and making decisions that align with your values and desires. The trip that never happened had been the catalyst for her transformation. She had learned that to live a fulfilling life, she had to start living for herself. No more compromises, no more living in the shadows of others. This was her life, and she was going to live it fully.